Ecuador, ahead of April 13th runoff election, recent polls reveal Citizens Revolution Party candidate Luisa Gonzalez is leading the presidential race. And as part of the strengthening of bilateral relations between the two nations, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi met with Russian President Vladimir Putin after his meeting with his Russian counterpart. Thousands of displaced Palestinians continue to leave Rafah following the evacuation order issued by the Israeli occupation army. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We'll begin with the news. Stay with us. In Ecuador, ahead of April 13th runoff election, recent polls reveal Citizens Revolution Party candidate Luisa Gonzalez is leading the presidential race. This way, two surveys authorized by the country's National Electoral Council show a lead for Gonzalez in front of presidential candidate and President Daniel Noboa. Precisely, a Negocios and Estrategias poll of some 3,000 voters conducted between March 24th and March 26th showed on Monday a 51.4% of voting intention for Gonzalez. In addition, she was also leading a poll by Pedro Cango that surveyed over 5,400 Ecuadorians, which showed a 51.9% voting intention compared to Noboa's 48.1%. It is worth recalling that President Noboa won by a narrow margin of less than 1% of votes February 1st round of election, a difference which triggered the upcoming runoff electoral process. And in Venezuela, the Great Patriotic Poll presented the candidates that will participate in the upcoming regional elections on May 25th. The president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, announced that the elections of governors, legislators for each state's legislative councils, and deputies to the National Assembly for the 2025-2031 period will be held next May 25th. Likewise, during the event, the president of the Special Electoral Commission of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, Diosdado Cabello, highlighted that the candidates were elected by the democratic, participatory, and proactive elections. Moreover, the EA emphasized that for the first time, the state of Guayana Esequiba will participate in the regional elections. And California federal judge Edward Shen blocked U.S. President Donald Trump's intention to end temporary protected status for Venezuelan nationals who have been granted this condition. Shen opposed Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem's decision to withdraw the status that protects some 600,000 Venezuelans from being deported to their country of origin. The ruling states that the U.S. government has no evidence that granting such status to Venezuelan citizens would cause any harm. After the inauguration of the current president, the Biden government updated the TPS so that it would be valid for another 18 months. However, Trump opposed this decision and requested the suspension of this prerogative. Argentine Foreign Minister Gerardo Berthein is expected to meet Tuesday U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio for initiating a trade deal between the two nations despite U.S. President Donald Trump's plans to impose sweeping tariffs on Argentina as of April 2nd. Therefore, the minister is trying to negotiate with Washington to dodge the taxes. Argentina produces $13 to $16 billion worth of grains, lithium, and energy, and since Trump took office in January, the Milei government had been strengthening their alleged strategic alliance. In this context, the senior diplomat would meet not only Rubio but also U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer to boost bilateral trade and seal a solid trade deal. Meanwhile, in Haiti, Kenyan foreign forces sustained casualties after clashes with armed groups in the country. The international police and military force reported that 2 police officers were assaulted while another is missing. The multinational security support mission has over 1,000 security personnel with the mission of restoring adequate security for the country to hold elections by February 2026. The Kenyan government has cited humanitarian reasons for its intervention in Haiti, while the deployment is also said to be motivated by a desire to boost the country's international profile and curry favor with the United States. In Thailand, rescue work continues for the fourth consecutive day in a collapsed building in Bangkok after the 7.7 magnitude earthquake that had its epicenter in Myanmar last Friday. Authorities on Tuesday raised the death toll to 20, while they are still searching for more than 70 workers who were trapped when a building under construction collapsed on top of them. According to the latest official death toll, some 34 people suffered injuries of varying severity during the earthquake in Bangkok, where the two citizens who were in their respective apartments also lost their lives. On the 30-floor building that collapsed, the death toll stands at 13, with the last victim reported on Monday night. Meanwhile, in Myanmar, rescue efforts are being hampered on Tuesday by the risk of landslides and aftershocks in parts of Burma worst affected by Friday's powerful earthquake. Some rescue operations in Mandalay, the country's second city and one of the places most affected by the 7.7 magnitude quake, located about 17 kilometers from the epicenter, had to be suspended on Tuesday. Efforts to find survivors in hard-hit areas of the city, including the Sky Villa condominium, the Great Wall Hotel, and the Hula Thain Monastery, had to be temporarily halted due to the risk of landslides and the impact of aftershocks, despite the hundreds of people missing at these sites. The death toll in the country after the earthquake reached 2,000 on Monday. And in Iceland, the town of Grindavik and the nearby Blue Lagoon tourist attraction were evacuated after the area was hit by another volcanic eruption. The eruption is the 11th since 2021, when the Reykjanes Peninsula started its new eruption period. The Icelandic Meteorological Office said an earthquake swarm started at about 6:30 a.m. local time on the Sundhnúkur crater row in a similar place to previous eruptions. The orange-red fissure expelling lava and smoke quickly spread southward, and by 10 a.m. local time, it had already reached through the defense walls north of Grindavik. The fishing town has been largely uninhabited since November 10, 2023, when an eruption resulted in the town cracking open, with fissures reaching a depth of 20 meters. We now have our first break coming up. Remember to join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We're going to be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. As part of the strengthening of bilateral relations between the two nations, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi met Russian President Vladimir Putin after his meeting with his Russian counterpart. The Russian President asked Minister Wang Yi to convey friendly greetings to the Chinese President Xi Jinping and invited him to participate in the celebration of the 80th anniversary of the victory in the Second World War, which will take place in Moscow in May. During the conclave, Putin welcomed the way in which relations between Moscow and Beijing are developing and pointed out that the main purpose of this visit is to prepare for future visits of the president of the Asian giant to Russia. The Chinese foreign minister, for his part, stressed that the cooperation between the two countries is not aimed at third countries and is not subject to external interference.
We want to express our satisfaction with the way our relations are developing, including with the direct contacts between our foreign ministries. I know that you have such a large, busy program for your visit, primarily relating to preparations for the arrival in Russia of the President of the People's Republic of China, Xi Jinping. We will prepare a good, full program for him.
For his part, the Chinese foreign minister highlighted the excellent state of bilateral relations among nations based on mutual political trust and the rejection of external interference.
Thanks to the care and promotion of the two heads of state, China-Russia political mutual trust has continued to deepen, strategic coordination has become more abundant, and pragmatic cooperation has continued to deepen, safeguarding the development and revitalization of the two great powers and also safeguarding our common interests in major international and regional affairs. China-Russia cooperation has never been directed against a third party and will never be subject to external interference. Our relations will not stand still, but will only become broader and broader. Our nation's friendship is not oriented towards the present, but towards the longer-term future.
In this context, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov assured the countries of the world consider Russian-Chinese relations as a stabilizing factor. The Russian Foreign Minister noted he recognized the responsibility of Moscow and Beijing to maintain close coordination in the international arena in his opening speech during negotiations with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi. Lavrov assured that Moscow will agree with China on how to strengthen their relations as well as on further coordination in the UN and other multilateral platforms in order to build a fairer and more democratic multipolar world order. Also in this framework, China called on the United States to bet on denuclearization and to reduce the risks of threats and tensions in global conflicts. Foreign Minister Wang Yi spoke on the subject of national security and highlighted the role of nuclear weapons in the face of global conflicts. Furthermore, Wang Yi stated that Washington should stop insisting on ideas of nuclear alliances in the world and also stop deploying weapons on other borders. In other news, the nations of China, Japan, and South Korea unite commercially in the face of the entry into force of U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff measures. According to international media, the trade ministers of China, Japan, and South Korea have proposed a possible free trade agreement to counter Washington's high tariffs. The meeting agreed to strengthen cooperation in their supply chains and engage in direct dialogue on exports. This alliance was established during the trilateral meeting of Asian nations on March 30th, where they established measures to facilitate regional trade in Asia. And the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, ensured the EU had a plan to counter U.S. tariffs imposition, but the EU would strive for reaching a bilateral negotiated solution to defuse tensions. In response to Trump's announcement of imposing tariffs on Europe, von der Leyen made clear that the bloc was ready to face such sanctions steadily. The EU leader urged to be united and ramp up their global trade with other partners worldwide. The Trump administration advanced to impose a 25% tax on cars and vehicle parts as of April 2nd, which would impact nearly 14 million European workers. This will be in addition to the 25% levy on steel and aluminum that EU exporters have paid for a month. As a result, the EU allocated $28 billion to take countermeasures on U.S. goods.
Our objective is a negotiated solution. But of course, if need be, we will protect our interests, our people and our companies. And I want to be very clear on the aim of our response. We think that this confrontation is in no one's interest. The flow of goods and services between us, the United States and Europe, is nearly balanced. Of course, we are willing to work on the trade balance of goods as well as on the trade balance of services. This is the largest and most prosperous trade relation worldwide. We would all be better off if we could find a constructive solution. At the same time, it also has to be clear. Europe has not started this confrontation. We do not necessarily want to retaliate, but if it is necessary, we have a strong plan to retaliate and we will use it. At the same time,
we now have our second and final short break coming up. Before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final break, I will be right back with more. Welcome back. Thousands of displaced Palestinians continue to leave Rafah following the evacuation order issued by the Israeli occupation army for the largest area of southern Gaza as the humanitarian crisis worsens due to the blockade of the enclave. On Monday, the genocidal regime issued a new forced evacuation order warning that soldiers will soon resume intense combat operations, forcing some 40,000 people to flee once again. In addition, evacuation orders were also issued Tuesday for residents of Beit Hanun, Beit Lahaya, and the neighborhoods of Sheikh Zayed, Al-Mansiyah, and Tal al-Satar in northern Gaza. According to UN reports, 20% of the Gaza Strip is already under Israeli evacuation orders, excluding buffer zones and the Netzarim corridor. And the United Nations Agency for Children, UNICEF, announced that 322 children were killed in the course of 10 days as a result of heavy Israeli bombardment of the Gaza Strip. UNICEF explained in a statement that the intense and indiscriminate bombardment, coupled with the total suspension of humanitarian aid, has put civilians in Gaza, especially children, at grave risk. The organization warned that the number of child deaths could rise if basic needs, which Israel has been blocking for a month, are not met. UNICEF stressed that more than 15,000 children have been killed and more than 34,000 injured in the past 18 months in Gaza, and that 1 million children have been displaced, deprived of their most basic needs. An Israeli army attacks on the Gaza Strip on Tuesday claimed the lives of a journalist and his family. According to Wafa news agency, an Israeli drone attacked the house of journalist Mohammed Saleh al-Bardawil in the known as Japanese neighborhood west of Han Yunis, resulting in his death along with his wife and their 3 children. According to the Gaza Health Ministry, at least 42 people were killed and 183 wounded in Israeli attacks in the last 24 hours. Since Israel broke the ceasefire and resumed its genocide in Gaza on March 18th, at least 1,001 civilians have been killed and 2,359 others have been wounded, mostly children and women. And at least 3 people were killed and 7 wounded in an overnight new Israeli bombardment of the capital of Lebanon, Beirut. This is the second such attack on Beirut since the ceasefire between Lebanon and Israel came into effect last October. Residents of the Lebanese capital woke up early Tuesday morning to the impact of shells that caused violent explosions in a residential building in the Mali neighborhood. The attack almost completely destroyed the top 3 floors of the building, claiming the lives of 3 people, according to the Lebanese Health Ministry. The occupation army informed that a Hezbollah leader was being targeted, following the direction of the army and the Shin Bet.
It's just another brutal assault by the Israelis, as they usually do. They are violating international agreements. It's a strike as all the Lebanese territory is free game to them.
We were at home. You know, it's Eid al-Fitr. People have finished their work and have time off.
The brutal strike took place. We didn't know where it happened, but once the smoke faded, it appeared it was the building directly facing us.
And in Israel, Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich has resigned from his post. Israeli Channel 12 reported Monday that Smotrich resigned in a letter to Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. A spokesperson for Smotrich said the resignation was a protest against Zionist Jewish Power Party head Itamar Ben-Gvir's request for more ministerial positions upon his return to join the regime again. The resignation will not collapse Netanyahu's coalition regime, but it will increase problems for it, as the move highlights growing fractures within Israel's far-right coalition. And in Malaysia, at least 33 people reported injured after gas pipeline explosion in residential areas. A major fire broke out on Tuesday morning in Putra Heights after an explosion of a gas main. The fire, which originated near a gas station, was visible from miles away and caused the immediate evacuation of nearby homes. 3 nearby gas stations were temporarily closed as a precaution, although they were not directly affected. Although no fatalities have been reported, authorities are still assessing the full extent of the damage. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.